Welcome to MTN Outdoors.
I'm Marion Davidson, and welcome to this holiday edition of MTN Outdoors. Old Andy Curtis was dead as a doornail. Well, he moved to Michigan, but that's pretty much the same thing. So viewers, on this holiday episode, you'll be visited by 3 hosts who will hopefully help you keep the spirit of the outdoors in your hearts as old Andy would. First, a host of Outdoors Past, a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child in a vest of white.
I'm not crazy, right? It wasn't that long ago that the temperature was over 80 degrees and the sun didn't set till well after 9 p.m. Man, those were the days. But I guess things have to change. For example, grizzly bears and wolves used to have a pretty small population here in Montana, but thanks to recovery efforts, they've seen a significant boost to their numbers. And MTN's Tom Buchanan reports FWP is ready should grizzly bears become delisted.
The Montana Fish and Wildlife Commission has adopted new administrative rules regarding wolves and grizzly bears. The ARM rules, or Administrative Rule of Montana, that deal with gray wolf management and potential grizzly bear management in the state, were approved by the Fish and Wildlife Commission on Thursday, December 14th.
ARM rules are the specifics on how we implement statutes. So they're the rules that constrain us on how statutes are implemented.
The Grizzly rules set a foundation for the state to manage the animals should they be delisted from federal protection. This change in the grizzly bear ARM came about because of Senate Bill 295, which was passed during the most recent legislative session.
Part of that law is that the commission has to set a quota for the number of bears that can be killed annually under that authority.
Should the bears be delisted, it would allow livestock owners to kill a grizzly bear if that bear is attacking livestock, as long as those livestock are where they are legally allowed to be. The gray wolf ARM changes went into effect immediately, impacting the lethal and non-lethal methods in which the department may interact with gray wolves. This ARM specifically removed reference to the Gray Wolf Conservation and Management Plan. This update to the wolf ARM is occurring at the same time that the department is working on updating their wolf management plan, a plan that has not been updated in 20 years.
So the new wolf plan isn't final yet, but this ARM rule change had to happen before the wolf plan was final, so that when it is final and adopted, that will be in line with the ARM rule.
Much of the public comment concerning the rules change was criticism of how they believe the state will manage these predators in the future. Proponents of the state's decisions on Thursday, such as Jeff Dara, Executive Director for Montana Sportsmen for Fish and Wildlife, feel that Montana should have sole control over these predators.
13 years they've been delisted, so the other side that you referred to wants to put them back on the list, and we don't want that. We think state management of our wildlife is the best way to go, not bureaucrats in Washington, D.C.
Opponents of the ARM changes criticized the state's harvesting numbers. Jessica Cargella, Executive Director of Footloose Montana, told MTN she feels both ARM plans will negatively impact both predators.
We just really feel like the non-consumptive community is not being heard. As a taxpayer myself, as someone who's grown up in Montana, as someone whose family has been in the area for generations, I find what Fish Wildlife Parks and what the executive office are doing right now reprehensible.
Reporting in Helena, Tom Buchanan, MTN News.
Other than when we visit a Fish, Wildlife and Parks office, the only other people most of us ever see affiliated with FWP are game wardens. This is their office. Wardens, first and foremost, are the law enforcement branch of FWP. But make no mistake about it, their roles go far beyond that.
Game wardens do a little bit of everything, from catching criminals, and protecting wildlife and state lands in that way, as well as helping with wildlife management, dealing with wildlife conflicts, traveling around to different areas of the state, and really serving the public and that public trust resource here in Montana.
Jacobson says a successful warden needs to be in good shape, both physically and mentally. They also need to enjoy being outside and must have good communication skills. He also notes that if you like something different to do almost every day, this is a career choice for you.
There's so much that encompasses the life and work of a game warden that it's one of the most has the most variety of so many jobs out there. So again, it's just a tremendous opportunity. If you have a passion for wildlife, if you have a passion for protecting wildlife and public lands and serving the public and enjoying being outside, this is a terrific career.
FWP taking applications until the first of the year. Head over to their website for more information about this, the most visible role in FWP. In Bozeman, Chet Lehman, MTN News.
Now, you may be familiar with Chico and Fairmont Hot Springs, but for those with long memories here in Montana, there's another hot spring located near Springdale that you may be familiar with, Hunter's Hot Spring. Well, rumors are swirling that those old hot springs may get some new life, as MTN's Jackie Coffin reports.
Like this stone fence still standing, you can still see remnants of the original Hunter's Hot Springs off of Convict Grade Road outside of Springdale. And while not much is left of this historical hotspot, locals to this area tell me they hope it has a bright future.
These are the only remnants of what once was the Grand Hunter's Hot Springs.
The big building itself burned down in the 30s, and there's still fire hydrants sitting out there.
Now it's a shell of its former self when the resort drew dignitaries and a long list of who's who to this corner of Montana.
Supposedly Wyatt Earp, Teddy Roosevelt, Doc Holliday.
All ruins now, but a sign spotted and shared across Facebook is kindling excitement the hot springs might come back.
That would be a great option.
Just more stuff to do around.
I think it would bring a lot more people around.
Jeannie Chapel is one of the many Big Timber residents who remember soaking in Hunters.
It was just a big metal Quonset building, had a great big huge slide.
And more than just a memory, Chapel can take us back through the history of the hot springs with a whole exhibit devoted to it at the Crazy Mountain Museum.
A lot of people did it for medicinal reasons.
Always known to the Apselica people as a place of healing, the hot springs were developed into a sanitarium by white settlers to this area around 1864. And it grew to a premier destination in the West.
There was a golf course. There were different little springs, private springs that you could go into. Dakota Hotel, which was the big one, had a beautiful dining room and the pool was attached on the end of it.
But all good things must come to an end. A fire destroyed the hotel in the 1930s and the property was sold. Other owners tried to revive it.
Harold and Mavis Johnson were the ones that owned it when I was a kid. And they bought it from his mother's estate and ran it until 1974.
While it's still a mystery who put these signs up, the land is now owned by Russell Gordy, operating as the Lone Star Land and Cattle Company. While representatives from the Gordy family say they're not yet ready to discuss future plans, Chapel and others are hopeful that this hot water icon could return.
I would love to see that. It gives me goosebumps to think about it.
Near Springdale, Jackie Coffin, MTN News.
So stay here with me in the past and we'll share some fishing tales among the shadows of things that have been. Oh no!
Please, please, enough of the past. Let us be here in the present with bright and harmless mirth. And coming up after the break, we have a look at winter recreation.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome back. Come outside and know me better. I'll be your host of MTN Outdoors Present. You may have hiked that trail or hit that slope, but I can guarantee it'll be unlike any other day because today is new. While the snow may be light in some places, including in Yellowstone National Park, that doesn't mean there's not plenty to do outside, as MTN's John Shear found out.
As wolves howled in the distance, and the temperature hovered at just 1 degree, the sun rose over the park entrance in West Yellowstone. Within hours, winter visitors were entering the park, but the snow is thin.
Oh, this is not going to be a banner of snow year like last year, by no means.
You can see that on the ground in Yellowstone, where there is bare pavement showing at some places around Old Faithful. Still, the park is open thanks to cold temperatures helping to preserve what little snow there is.
Snowmobiles are allowed in the park, and then the large tire snow coaches that most of the companies that operate in the park in the winter have these days.
That was evident by the number of big tired snow coaches that made their way down this road and lined up at the entrance to the park shortly after 8 a.m.
The only restrictions we have right now are on some of the cleated, tracked vehicles, and by cleated I mean some of the snow coaches, the older snow coaches like Bombardiers that have the metal cleated tracks. Because they tend to be a little harder on the thin snowpack that we have.
This could be breaking down by the time we get into spring, and if it goes into a neutral phase, hopefully we can get a normal rainy season, and that would really be beneficial heading into the summer months. But for the snow pack, that's probably not looking very good this year.
For now, though, the park says conditions are good for wintertime visitors.
Winter wildlife viewing in Yellowstone is always amazing. In some ways, I think it's even better than it is in the summertime, especially for some of the animals like bison, which are really common along the road corridors in the wintertime. It's also a great time of year to maybe have a chance to see wolves in the park, or coyotes, or fox.
In Yellowstone National Park, John Shearer for MTN News.
Hunters, Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks needs your help. FWP has already started the process of calling over 100,000 hunters.
Our job is to manage the resource and to ensure that the populations that we manage are healthy and sustainable. The populations are sustainable. So one of the tools that biologists use to manage the trends in those populations is harvest, in addition to some of the counts and things that they already do.
FWP is contacting hunters in order to gather valuable information on the 2023 hunting season. They're looking for information pertaining to time spent hunting, districts hunted in, harvest details, and wolf and moose sightings. FWP uses the answers to these over-the-phone questions in order to feed a chain of information. Once the information is gathered by the call center, it is passed along to wildlife biometricians like Kevin Podruzny. Once they analyze that data, wildlife biologists can help create recommendations to pass along to wildlife managers, who can then in turn decide what actions to take based on the data. This data can impact the hunting season, wildlife, and habitat.
So when I say it's the little call that runs the woods, what I mean by that is once we start adjusting those seasons and those harvest takes, then we start really interacting with the natural landscape there. We could, impact the meandering of rivers or the vegetation that those animals consume. So it's very, very important to us that we get the most accurate quality data we can to hand that over to our managers.
FWP does want respondents to beware of scammers. True survey callers from FWP will never ask for sensitive information, such as social security numbers, or make requests for donations or payments. Christina Ma, Harvest Survey Coordinator with Montana FWP, says that FWP is currently using a specific caller ID.
The caller ID we're currently using will be an abbreviation of Montana FWP Harvest Survey. So they should know it's us calling.
Ice, ice, baby. Parts of Montana have been through a winter wonderland recently as both rime ice and surface hoarfrost have encased many objects in a feathery, crystally ice. Both deposit crystals formed by either direct freezing or sublimation on objects, usually smaller items that are freely exposed to the air, such as tree branches, plants, wires, and power poles, to name a few. While the results are very similar, the difference between hoarfrost and rime ice lies in the source of the moisture. Rime ice moisture comes from freezing fog water droplets that turn directly from a liquid state to a solid state. Think being in a cloud or thick fog, and that moisture freezes directly on contact. Surface hoarfrost forms on clear, cold nights without fog. Water vapor and moisture that's invisible right above the immediate surface of the ground freezes into ice crystals. This invisible moisture sublimates, meaning it transitions directly from a gaseous state to a solid state of ice. Areas in Montana that have been under inversions, trapping moisture near the surface, have experienced both, and the results have been beautiful wintry scenery That's a little harder to come by so far this season.
Now, I know things could be better out here for snow, but in my opinion, that's just want and ignorance of enjoying what we have here in the present.
But in the future, things are looking grim if we don't add anything to our existing snowpack. More on our seasonal outlook after the break.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome back. I'm the host of Outdoors Yet to Be. Beware the frightful specter of winter here in the northern state of Montana, which around this time of year is pretty much the North Pole. Well, actually, I'm forecaster Geneva Zoltek, and our winter thus far, it really hasn't been too, well, wintry. And that might not be a good thing. The reporting sites for snowpack in Montana are below the threshold for medium levels right now, and we just haven't seen a big snow event since October, and that's not good news for drought projections. So here's the deal. Over the next few months, the season climate outlook is expected to be drier than average in Montana, and also we are looking at warmer than average temperatures through February. Before the outdoor conditions yet to come, we are looking at a bigger storm hitting western Montana this Saturday, which could leave behind some snow just in time for Christmas. Now, much like the weather, the future is always something that's yet to be seen, but even a community like Colstrip is seeing change nowadays. MTN's David J. has this.
This is the Eder family ranch. A lot of the towers will go on this land and also out in that direction. The company says it will start construction next year and have the windmills ready to go in 2025. For as long as most can remember, this land north of Reed Point has looked just like this. Miles upon miles of ranch land with a Rocky Mountain backdrop.
It's peaceful, it's quiet, you have the mountains to look at, it's just a down-home way to live.
But changes could be coming to Lauren Elder's ranch.
Without a doubt, the windmills will change the scenery.
As Puget Sound Energy gets set to begin construction on a 248 megawatt wind farm encompassing this ranch and several others.
Farmers and ranchers are looking for ways to supplement their income and to be able to continue to operate and pay their bills, and I think Dad was that same way.
Eder now lives in town, but his dad Delbert had been involved in the project since it was first a concept 20 years ago. He passed away in 2021.
I think he'd be very happy to see it happening.
But in the last decade, while it didn't benefit the Eders directly, Stillwater Wind constructed a smaller facility. As for the Beaver Creek project, several concrete pads for the turbines were actually poured several years ago, but construction was halted due to supply chain issues and costs.
We're very excited about the opportunity. This will be one of the first projects that we bring online since our goal of going carbon neutral has come into place.
Power produced here will be shipped out of state. The 248 megawatts enough to power 83,000 homes for a year.
Our wind farm will connect to Northwestern, and then the Northwestern transmission system will eventually bring it back to the Puget Sound region.
Montana will benefit economically, with the wind farm expected to contribute $150 million in taxes to Stillwater County, but Eder has heard concerns.
It's going to have an effect on the grazing.
Even so, there may be more projects in Montana for Puget Sound Energy.
We're always looking at projects, and I can't say much more than that, but Montana's got an incredible wealth of resources when it comes to wind and solar.
Near Reed Point, David J., MTN News.
The bison and cattle debate is one of contention in Montana.
It's easy for us to divide and to fight amongst us, but at the end of the day, we're all working towards a common goal, and that's improving the landscape and raising and providing healthy, nutritious protein for the consumer.
In the last 2 centuries, westward expansion eliminated bison from the North American landscape, creating conflict between tribal nations and the acquisition of land in the early 2000s to reestablish a herd under the American Prairie Reserve.
And to be able to sit down and talk about those commonalities and recognize that large herbivores grazing our grasslands here in the state are important, whether that's bison or cattle.
Those commonalities have been scrutinized in the years that American Prairie has been in the state of Montana for its handling of those land acquisitions. Corey Williamson, Senior Outreach Manager for American Prairie.
American Prairie has made some missteps over the year in the ways we've talked about agriculture, and I think we're working to rebuild trust and relationships in communities, and There's never been an intention that American Prairie would replace agriculture.
Aaron Paulson is the former ranch manager for Turner Ranch running Bison, and bison producers are passionate about soil health, foliage growth, and conservation. But the term conservation holds a black cloud over its head, and its meaning is often misunderstood.
It's important for people to remember, myself included, that we have to be businesses. We have to be sustainable. We have to pay the bills, and this has to be profitable. And taking any one species off of our list just because we don't agree with it, look at different options that maybe could increase the viability and the longevity of the property that we're living on.
Scott Heidebrink is the director of bison restoration for American Prairie. The operation's goal is to see a full-functioning ecosystem that living residents of the land haven't seen since the bison's elimination over a century ago.
All the tiny interactions that when you take bison off the landscape, they go with the animal. So when you bring a bison back, you're also bringing back thousands of pounds of fur every year that is shed on the landscape that birds and mice and voles can use for nesting.
Brad Hamlet, a Montana cattleman and former state legislator. His perspective is a process that is bigger than we could imagine.
North America is one of the largest eco-grazing systems in the world. And unless you have grazing animals on that ecosystem, you're going to have consequences that you don't like. There's a rhythm to it, and the rhythm can get disrupted when you have special interest groups that say, well, we don't want any cattle on the landscape anymore, we want to get rid of beef. It's the exactly wrong thing to do.
Still, American Prairie and other bison producers alike will continue to spread the message that the two can coexist.
People need to peel back the layers of that onion and dig deeper and really understand what's going on and try to make that effort to connect with the land, or connect with the producer, or connect with whatever it is that they're interested in or concerned in. The better that they're connected to it and the better they understand it, they can formulate an opinion.
Reporting in Great Falls, Ryan Gamboa, MTN News.
Well, that does it for this week's episode of MTN Outdoors.
Remember the past and share those stories, even the ones that got away. And live in the moment. Even the worst day on the hill is better than a day at work.
And always prepare for the future, but keep the outdoors in your heart and get outside every day of the year and enjoy it.
Stay safe out there. Keep those tips up.
And we'll see you next week.